You're good? Okay. At 6:01, we'll go ahead and call to order the October 16th meeting of the Weld County Weld RE5J Board of Education. If you take a moment to silence your cell phones, rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty for all. Oh, there you are. Ms. Diagano, would you please call roll?
Thomas Johnson, here. Commander, here. Nate Sano,
Here.
Amy Musgrave, here. Michael Whale.
Here. We do need to agenda for this evening. I kind of would like to, as much as it's going to make some people squirm in this room, I would kind of like to pull back item 8 back to a work session before we bring this for a first reading. Is there anybody who's wholly up to doing that?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we strike our new business, which is the district facility use policy update K through F and KF and KFR.
Second.
I have a second by Vice President Sassano. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. I will entertain a motion to approve our amended agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Sassano, a second by Director Musgrave. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. We have an agenda. Do we have any citizen comments? All right. Well, let's move on to our staff and student celebrations and recognitions. Superintendent Nielsen.
President Wales and board members. Tonight, I'd like to focus on our core business. When I think about celebrations, we just began quarter number 2, and over the last couple of weeks had a chance to hear a lot about how we're wrapping up quarter number 1, and would just like to take an opportunity with the board to thank our staff. Our staff has been working really hard. There's a lot of things being asked of them as they come to work every single day. And there's a lot of focus on making sure our students belong. Our students feel like they've got a place in classrooms, and a focus on how we allow students to have voices that are heard. So I just want to honor and recognize that as we culminate quarter number 1 and walk into quarter 2, that we have a tremendous staff here in our Johnstown Milliken School District. We've got fantastic people that come to work each and every day. And so I just wanted to start with you all tonight as we think about what goes on in this district. We're about to celebrate some individual success that is a testament to what's happening today with our adults. So I'd like to start there. Second is about to the principals. It's national principals. So as we think about leaders in our building, also just a strong group of leaders that get to lead and become that group that is helping to facilitate and help our teachers each and every day, but also help monitor and pay attention to and be a conduit for what's being asked of our schools. Our leaders help to make that go and make that happen while they continue to help build a culture and climate in each of our buildings. And if you have a chance to go around and get in them, each of our schools have a positive feel to them, and that's a testament to not only the teachers but also the leadership at each of those. So I just wanted to start there and make sure we're honoring what's happening in our district, and a lot of great things going on. And then the primary focus tonight of my celebrations is the group that's in front of us. Each year, students have an opportunity to take a college board assessment. It's administered and allows them to apply for merit scholarships. And the test is the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And this current year, students will sit for next week. We've got 25 students that have asked to take it. Sit in front of you tonight are individuals who took it a year ago and who then, as we find out, they have qualified or have been awarded some national recognitions. We wanted to honor each of these 7 students, some of which we have here in person tonight. And in these categories, they are students that are performing at a high level in 2 categories, one of 2 categories, and some of ours are in both. Some for first generation and some in the rural category. We've got both with us in our district. So I want to start tonight by recognizing those that I don't believe are with us. I hope I don't miss anybody that's here. If I do, please holler, but I think I have everybody. But I'm going to start by just honoring those that were awarded this recognition that aren't with us tonight, and we'll make sure we coins to them in person, and then we'll have each of those that are with us come up and talk a little bit about what you're pursuing. Where are you thinking might go? What's next for you as you leave Roosevelt and think about your journey beyond 5J? So I'll start by recognizing Megan Atkinson, who is honored in the rural category. Yalen Chavez, who was honored in both the first generation and the rural category. Austin Ruff was honored in the generation and the rural category. Makai Today was honored in the rural category, and Cassidy Webb in the rural category. So those
In rural?
rural.
Okay.
That's hard, Michael. I don't know why it's hard for me. In the rural category.
Okay.
And then with us tonight, I'll start with Kaylin Atkins. Kaylin, come on up. Kaylin, will you just talk to the board and the group that's with us about what you're thinking going forward? And then I'd ask you just to slide down in front of the table, and we'll ask the board to come out after everyone's talked and shake everyone's hand.
Okay.
What do you think?
I want to pursue biomedical sciences at CSU
Nice.
and hopefully go into the medical field, maybe as a physician assistant. So yeah, those are my plans.
Very cool. Well, congratulations and nice job.
Thank you.
Let's give her a hand. How about Richard Borson? It's hard to tell at least what you might be interested in.
So I'm planning to go into the electrical engineering field at Wyoming, which I recently got accepted into. So
I guess I should try it again for board members. Kaylin was rural, and so was Richard.
Very good.
All right, Bill and Ford.
My current plan so far is to just be a pillar of support for my family and something that allows me to do that.
Kevin was in the first generation category. Robert.
Hi, I'm trying to go to CU Boulder for a major in physics and German studies, then going to a postgraduate school in Germany for a PhD in physics, then being a professor over there.
Nice.
Robert is also first generation. How about Emma Jex?
Hope to go to college summer on a pre-med track and then go to medical school to become a surgeon.
And Peyton Nye.
I'm wanting to go into aerospace engineering, and
undecided on which college yet, pretty much just try to get accepted.
All right, board members, will you join me, Rod?
Good choice. Thank you.
That concludes my celebrations for this evening.
Okay. Do we have any board celebrations? Monica, you always do. I know you're going to have some.
Yeah, I always put them in my reports or vice versa. Whatever way is wrong, I usually do that. Oh, do you want me to start?
If you want, let's just segue to board reports and you can start.
Yeah, I would love to start. I was able to take place in the resume workshop and career building workshop, and Ms. Borland is here today. She worked tirelessly on that event, and it was such a good success. And love to see the community participate and the level of participation that was volunteered for that event. The amount of others that came to talk to students, how vested the students were in really taking advantage of what was offered that day. And so anytime you have an event like that, there are so many hands, and I know you had a lot of helpers that place in that, but what a successful, encouraging, uplifting, and overall just phenomenal event. So thank you so much for doing that. And that is what I got to participate in the last few weeks.
All right. So I know we talked at a work session, but I did do the first DAC meeting, the district accountability meet for the year. Looked over the UIP plans, which I know we get the pleasure of approving later on. Lots of good successes going. I appreciate how the staff are continually challenging themselves and recognizing even they didn't quite meet their goal, because that's part of life in general, is sometimes you just don't quite meet it the first year and you got to take a go at it. And I think it's brave to admit that on paper and to go through that. And then last week I went to the CTE dinner for the CTE advisory board. The ProStart students made dinner. It was really good. I had my favorite things on the menu, which is churros. It was Mexican. You missed out. It was very, very good.
Quiet over there.
It was, yeah, they had types of quesos.
Come on. Let's go on.
It was crazy. Yeah, I mean, it was so many people there. Incredible to see the support of the different advisory boards that they have there. I mean, when you're talking about feeding that people, I think Rebecca had said that serving dinner took longer, and it took longer because there was more people, which is a great thing, because there was just a ton of people, which is fantastic. I didn't get it for the individual, I didn't pop into any of the individual boards, is that what you call them, advisory boards? But it was great. It's great to see that kind of support from the community, and to hear also where they're looking for support, because I think that's also being aware of. I think, if I remember correctly, it was like cybersecurity was one of them. That was the big one that stuck in my brain, and I think it's because it's an emerging issue across all industries right now. That really stuck in my brain. So if there's any local cybersecurity experts, I know they'd love to have your advice. It's just great to be a part of that.
Very good.
Just a couple things from me. I attended the kickoff to the long range planning task force, the kind of reboot long range planning task force. So I just want to say thank you. There were parents and staff and some of our partners in the build trades there. That's really good work for this district. That's going to be really, really important over the next 5 or 10 years. I mean, you can drive around and see why that's going to be really important to decide where things are going to go and when things are going to go. So I'm glad to have that coming together. Just so we all know, none of the board members are attending those meetings, so that we don't influence what happens in those meetings. I'm excited to see what recommendations they will bring to us at the end of the process to help us kind of figure out where new buildings might one day in the not too distant future, when we might be looking at new buildings. So exciting to see that group. And I had to leave that meeting early to go to middle school choir concert because my daughter is in the middle choir. But it's really exciting to see the growth in the music program, especially at the school. And I think that will translate to the high school in a few years. There were 150 kids roughly in the choir concert that night. And I don't know how it's been in the past. That was really exciting to see that many kids, students, sorry. I can say it's because one of them was mine. In the music program. And that was just the choir concert. The next night was a band concert. And my understanding, we didn't go to that one because we didn't have a student there, but my understanding is there were almost as many in that program as there were in the choir program. So hoping to see that translate into the high school and see numbers jump up in the music programs to the high school, or not here. We're not in the high school, at the high school soon. So that was good to see and fun to watch. So that's it for me.
Lots of softball, always at softball. Our girls are doing great. Made it to first round of state, 10 a.m. on Saturday. If y'all want to go out and support them, we're playing Pomona. I think we Pomona won after Friday night. So let's go get them, ladies. Band is doing awesome. Went to the St. Brain band. It was super cool. All of the bands came together at the end and played Sweet Caroline. My dad was in marching band, and I mean, he was just in the height of glory. He was the best timer. And I was talking to one of the moms and did say it was the largest the band had been since her daughter was a freshman. So congrats to Mr. Balderson for doing a great job building that program. Our band's doing great. She said the difference between when her daughter was a freshman and now is significant. So I've been really enjoying that. We also went and they had regionals in Lafayette and enjoyed the performance there. Choirs tonight, so my daughter's singing right now. But my husband's putting it on the Roosevelt page, so I'll watch it. And also cross country, lots of cross country. Those children just run. And I watch and I cheer, and I enjoy that. So that's what I've been doing. I would have loved to go to the college and career exploration. I was working that day. I'm hoping you repeat that, to be a part of that at some point and get some time off work. So I'd love to help. Oh, also, I had a really cool one. My stepson, he is a success story with our program. We sent him to the NASCAR tech school. He did some CT stuff here, and he came and spoke to FFA class 2 weeks ago. So it was pretty cool. That's all.
Awesome. I don't have anything. I was going to say that we're at the point of our meeting. I don't have anything. At the point of our meeting, we're getting boring, and I forgot to allow you guys all the opportunity to just sneak out if you want right now. You're more than welcome to stay, but you certainly do not have to.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
That was good to hear though.
Fun stuff.
You can move over. You can move over. You can move over if you want, so you're not in the video.
No, it makes it look like there's a lot of people still here.
Oh yeah, go back. Go back.
Keep on moving throughout.
Move one more.
meeting.
Move another one.
There we go.
You don't have to look back and be like, man,
All right, we'll move on to the, from the superintendent's office.
President Wales. Things that have already been talked about. We kicked off the long-range planning. In addition to that, we've been having our list sessions around the transition between MES and MIS. So we had our third listening session. This one was up at Pioneer Ridge. We probably had 25 people there, and it was a good session. It was so interesting that more of the concern had to do with the possibility of the library and the movement. There clearly were people there that were, I don't want to move my kid over to Milligan. I want students to stay where they are. But it was, it was a good listening. They asked good questions. So that one, and now we're in the process of what we shared throughout the process was that we be contacting each of the families currently live in Milliken and work in their students Pioneer Ridge. They're the ones that actually transition from Pioneer over to one of the Milliken sites. And so that has started in earnest. Tammy has been working hard at those conversations. And so thank you, Tammy, for starting to dig into those, because there's close to 100 families or 100 students. How many things that will translate in with families that have 2 and 3 students? But they're already appreciating the one-to-one contact that those personal phone calls will create. Since the time we were together, we've had quite a bit of time to meet with leaders across the district. We set up our negotiations calendar for the year. We won't start our negotiations meetings until January. With the issues sharing with the board again this year, tentatively planned for the RMS February 5th work session would be where we invite JMEA to come and break bread together and share our issues like we did last year over at Roosevelt. So we did that. We had a chance to hear from them how things are going and what some of the issues are, and that happened to be here in this building. And the 2 teachers that lead the negotiations also happen to be on staff here, and talked about how great things are going, what a great job the leadership team here is doing. So that was encouraging. I think the next day or 2 days later, we had our first meeting of the year with JMEA presidents, who happen to both be at RMS or RHS. So we met with them and heard much the same thing. It was I'd say the easiest meeting we've had in my tenure here in terms of the issues they brought forward. The issue they brought forward really was one they took ownership for. It had to do with membership and how they're keeping track of who's in, who's out, and that traction. So you'll notice that's not on the agenda tonight. We'll bring that forward soon. They're working to clean that all up with our payroll department. But again, that had to do with the way they were monitoring and how they were holding people, not holding, that's the wrong way to say that. There wasn't a clean process when people left to make sure they weren't still on the list. So it's feasible in the past several years. We've actually approved a list that included some people who were not currently in the process. So they're working on cleaning that up. That was a good meeting. There was a lot of positive energy there. The college and career workshop was phenomenal. And I had a chance to talk to Jennifer because the workshop she put on that day, and if you talk to people from Roosevelt, she did a lot of the work to make that happen. But that's the kind of activity that happened, or that lots of schools around the country talk about, and Roosevelt made it happen. And 80+ vendors or businesses be there to share their expertise, their opportunities with our students was phenomenal. And the way they structured the day, there were a few tweaks they talked about making afterward. In general, the day was super positive. Many of us from the district office had a chance to spend the majority of our day there. And it was awesome to see, right down to the surprise at the end of the day, which was a rock band out on the field that played some rock music and talked about financial literacy. So it was this nice combination of rock, financial literacy, which those 2 things didn't go so well together for me when I was into my rock era, but it was a good day. We had a chance, I guess it was last week, to meet the author of the book that if you think about the work we're doing at the elementary school, the work is part of a book that we had a chance to meet the author. We took the elementary principals on a road trip, spent a couple hours with Barb. Barb asked them lots of questions about what they're doing, how are you doing it, tell me things that are going well, things that aren't. Super positive to watch our three principals engage with each other, engage with her, that learning in terms of practices, talk to each other about it. Also the camaraderie that goes with that in terms of helping get on the same page. Each of our elementaries in a different place, but all moving forward. And you think about trying to manage each leader moving their building at the rate they think they can. That's a powerful leadership move, and that's what's happening right now with our three principals. So that was a fun day, but also intense. And you get back from a day like that and you're mentally tired because all day long you're talking about business. The CT advisory was great. It was the first time I had been able to go to the CT advisory and engage after dinner. I happened to engage that with the Ag advisory group, and that's a pretty energetic group. They have some passions around the possibilities of a barn and want to know how they can truly get involved and help us raise a barn. So that's what we'll be talking about as we do one-on-ones and small group, possibly work session topic in terms of what's there and how do we support them supporting us, because realistic questions are asking. And then earlier this week we had another meeting with small group from the library to talk about or to hash out what's in the IGA. I believe they last night with their whole board, and they were going to get the first crack with what we talked about the other day, get it to us and let us take a look at what they're asking for. But we were able to reiterate some of the things we talked about, go deeper with a few other things, and then we'll get the IGA started and then get feedback from the board. That's probably a good place to stop.
Questions for Superintendent Nielsen? All right, thank you. We'll go on to our report from the CFO's office. Mr. Everett.
Thank you, President Wales, and members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Nielsen. Tonight, I'd just like to give a quick update on where the district is as of September 30th, and then also talk about kind of some things that we're starting to hear about the 24-25 budget cycle. So, starting on the second slide, ITT, we're kind of right where we would expect to be this time of year with our revenue received and amount expended. The schools, the range of the schools is right where we would expect it to be this time of year. Moving on to the third slide, this just gives us the breakdown of where the schools are in their year-to-date and their current month budgets. Looking at slide number 4, district departments did a total of 99.73% of their monthly budgets. There were a couple of the departments that were outliers in that for various reasons. One that I'd like to highlight, information technology. This is one of the expenditures that I actually don't mind that much because we had to purchase additional iPads for the additional students that we're getting this year. So don't really like to spend the money, but spending it for that I don't have much of a problem with. So moving on to slide number 5, looking at the other funds the district has. Again, this is there isn't anything of any concern. There were some funds that are kind of outliers in their monthly expenditures that we have detailed there. And then on slide number 6 gives a current month and the year-to-date percent budget spent breakdown for our other funds in the district. Are there any questions on the monthly financial statement summary?
I have a couple.
Okay.
For this school year, can you remind me what the PR is?
The PPR is right at 11,000. It's like 10,900. I'd have to look it up, but it's around 11. It's right at 11,000.
Cool. What's count looking like?
So.
Oh.
I know we bought additional iPads. How many additional iPads did we buy?
Good question.
So Director Proctor count, and I haven't run a fresh one this week just simply because.
You like to be surprised.
Sorry.
You like to be surprised.
Well, it's just right now there's just a lot of movement with you know, we're able to find kids that we're able to claim. We're finding kids that were registered but showed up. You know, we're kind of Rodriguez is going through the process of whittling all down.
Yeah.
Let me find it here real quick. The last one I ran was last week, and that one showed that we were 69 students over where we had budgeted for this school year. So that's great. Especially if it holds, that's great. I mean, this number will come down just as we find students that were registered and weren't showing up, or that, you know, for example, they don't have enough, like at the high school level, they don't have classes to be a full-time, so they'll be counted as a part-time student.
Oh.
So as we go through kind of the reconciliation process, those will get narrowed down, and Mrs. Rice is really good at finding those, so that the auditors don't find them when they come and audit us every 3 years. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll have a nice rise in December when we get our whole count numbers.
So 69 right now, and we budget an increase of like 25, 50. Okay.
So in the current budget, we had budgeted for an increase of 50.
Right, but we have an additional
69 over the
69
50.
right now.
Additional 69 over that.
So that's 120.
It's a whole track.
Yeah, it's a whole grade level at elementary school.
So yeah, it's so we'll settle down a little bit from that, but it's cautiously optimistic. Thank you.
If you could just help me remember, because I know I could look back on this, but I was just looking at the list for our scoreboard. And will you remind me, I know at some point we're optimistic that it will not only be paid for, but it will actually bring in revenue. Do you have a projection of when that will take place?
So right now, we have lease for the stadium scoreboard. The inside arena scoreboard, we pay for that out of capital reserve, and the plan is that, you know, each year we'll transfer money from student activities back into capital reserve to pay that back into capital reserve. We on the STEM scoreboard, we have 3 years left on that. We just made a payment in July for that, so we have 3 payments for that. Without looking exactly of, you know, year 4 or 5, you know, as we get into this, you know, then, you know, the lease will be paid off, the interior, the arena scoreboard, you know, will be paid back. So then the sponsorship agreements that we have, you know, with different businesses in the community, so then that will be accretive to the district. So we have a ways.
And Michael, it's fair to say that we're right now, the 2, and it's early on the 1 and the 10, but the combined right now, they're bringing in a little over $100,000 a year.
In that bar. Again, it's been a while since I've looked at it, so I can't.
Yeah, give exact number right
Yeah,
now.
it's in that ballpark.
Yeah.
What the sponsorship agreements were.
So it's been a really good investment.
So far, yes. Well, I mean, if we don't
Cautiously optimistic.
if we don't get contract renewals or
Right.
sponsorship renewals, then
Right.
We'll have a problem with paying it back. But you know, up until this point, you know, yes, it hasn't been a huge sink for district.
Cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic. Yeah. That's about as good as it gets, right?
We'll take it. We'll
That's pretty
take it.
positive.
Yeah.
Any other things on the financial numbers? Okay. If we go to slide number 7, so K-12 public education funding for 25-26. So this year's kind of unusual in that we already have a funding bill for public education for next year. It's House Bill 2448. It was passed last session. The current law has a $95 million in total program funding for the entire state. Or 5J, this translates into about a 2.38% PPR increase for us. However, there are questions about if the state is going to be able to, well, and I'm sorry, so this is the first year since the Great Recession we haven't had a negative factor being applied to school districts. So, so all of that kind of thing is, will the state be able to meet that commitment? You know, that's currently in law, because it's just a law. They can change the law. That's kind of their job. That they make laws. So they can remake this one if they choose to. And then kind of the next bullet point is some history of our PPR increases. So as you can see, the last 3 cycles, we've gotten quite a bit more than 2.38%. So those days are over for the foreseeable future. We're definitely settling back into a more normal pace where, you know, PPR increases of between, you know, 1.5% to 2% a year, what they had been running kind of before the pandemic. Looking at our last slide, so in September there was an economic forecast that was presented to the state's Joint Budget Committee. That forecast showed lower than anticipated state revenue at that time, higher than anticipated expenditures, largely driven by healthcare, it's largely driven by Medicaid. Unplanned for Medicaid spending, which Colorado definitely is not an outlier in that regard. Many, if not most, other states are also experiencing that problem. So the September forecast showed a projected $900 million deficit for 25-26. The next economic forecast is due in December, so that will be another data point to kind of show how things are going. The hope is the hope is always that it will be better. We'll have to kind of wait until December to see how the numbers are shaping up. It's not all bad for Colorado. We still have a strong economy. There are really no recession indicators that are flashing red. And additionally, for public education, the elimination negative factor in the current year, that was definitely celebrated by the state legislature and by the governor, you know, as an achievement. So the hope is that they would be more reluctant to fire it back again for 25-26. But, you know, again, we're just at the very beginning of the process for this year, so we'll have to stay tuned for all of that. This concludes my presentation, and I can answer any questions for you.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I will move on to our consent agenda. Our rules of parliamentary procedure provide for consent agenda listing items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda have got board review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and the public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member. Otherwise, would entertain a motion.
I had a question on one of the items. Can
You
you
want-
pull on the rolling overnight?
Okay.
Do you want to pull it off the consent so I can ask my question?
Okay, so we'll remove the out-of-state wrestling trip from the consent agenda. Anything else to? Still on your motion for that modified consent agenda?
Oh, consent agenda.
We have a move by Director Proctor, a second by Vice President Snow to modified consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagon, please pull the board.
Yes. Andy Proctor?
Yes.
Nate Smith?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
Yes.
Michael?
Okay, now we'll move and discuss the wrestling trip requests.
Question on the out-of-state trip requests. I don't have a problem with wrestling going to be challenged, to grow. I thought there was a process than just an email. I thought there was like a form or something.
They have done, that. We brought this forward in this kind of model, at least in my year. And we did make a decision over the last couple of meetings in preparation for these meetings to, when it's not asking for dollars, to think about it being on consent. It's them forward asking for out-of-state travel and asking for the board. Given that what they're asking for in this case is they're to say thumbs up on them going out of town. In terms of what always filled out, I don't recall seeing
Okay.
a super formal just the trips.
Maybe I'm thinking of something different. I don't
Am I
know.
wrong?
I just was saying that it was just an email, but okay. I just thought it was, there was a form or something, and that could just be me being confused is what it's.
There's a process when they come and ask us for money, and they do some work with just a budget and a spreadsheet, and they share that with us.
Yeah, I think we don't. Yeah, we don't get a lot of it. Don't. Is usually what happened. I mean, usually they're coming in saying, "Can we use a bus, or can we hotel, or plane tickets, or whatever?" Or they're telling us how they think we get a lot, like the cheer team and the dance team. They're not often asking us for money. They raise the money, what their budget is, and what their trip logistics are. So I think this is just a little unique because they're. But
We certainly, if board members would like us to have a more focus, we certainly could do something like that. That would not be hard for us to say to at the high school, and at high school or middle, we could have a more formal process for board approval.
I don't a formal process. I think what you're talking about, like dance and cheer usually aren't asking us, but they have a better budget. And I think it's really transparent to people looking at it that a cheer or dancer, it's going to cost $3,000 for them to go on a trip. It's very transparent on how much fundraising and the cost of that. So if you're looking into how much and where it is, I think this is just so bare bones that it was just interesting. Like there's nothing about what they did because I'm just kind of genuinely curious what they did, and trip costs, there's nothing like that either, because I think it's amazing to be able to do that, and I think they're doing it. It was interesting. It was like 3 sentences.
Yeah.
A bit more information would be good, just to be transparent, just from my understanding as well.
Those are fair.
Better than that, I'll motion to approve the out-of-state wrestling request.
I have a motion by Director Proctor, a second by Johnson to approve the out-of-state wrestling trip. Any further discussion or question? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana, would you please call?
Yes. Amanda Proctor?
Yes.
Nick Sisano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
Yes.
Michael Whale?
Yes.
She almost forgot you.
We'll move on to our special. The first item is Roosevelt High School Amendment number 24. Superintendent Newton, you're
We've got Jacob here to help us walk through both two items. We'll start with 24.
Great. So this is high school amendment 24, just small items. One is installed in the arena. One of those was, or some of that was relation, redoing some band. It's just a great help lift and having the contractors do it rather than facilities. Second part of that is additional exterior lettering that was requested staff and gone through the process for that. That's the extent of 24. And coming out of construction contingency, the remaining construction, which all that means, we have the monies in our accounts, but that's correct. Extra costs like this, hey, it'd be really nice if we had an extra light here and whatnot. That's still sitting around $60,000 for RHS contracts.
Is there a deadline for that to be spent, or is it just there until we spend it?
The only deadline I have is just bond fund roll, which we've spent over 85% first 3 years. That's one of the first milestones. And from there, I think it's, look at it, but I think it's fun.
any questions, other questions or discussion?
I'll motion to approve the Roosevelt High School Amendment number 2 amount of $13,820.92 for total amount of this project to $7,209,082.07.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Director Proctor, a second by Director Johnson to approve Roosevelt High School Amendment number 20. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Diagana.
Rita Haskett. Also, Monica Johnson.
Yes.
Amanda Proctor.
Yes.
Sisano.
Yes.
Amy Musgrave. Michael Whale.
Yes. Our next item is Roosevelt Middle School Amendment number 10. I assume that's you again.
Yes, it is. I'm not going to like me to. I'm not going to go line by line. There's quite a few, but most of these are that you often get in a renovation, or we're coming to the end. We still have contractor continues, so it's one of those. Oh, it'd be nice to add that in. So these were all discussed as either a pro or a tiny add. A fair number of those are add LVT, since we have some more contingency in offices that weren't going to get touched. Painting, a lot of things that have spruced up the school very well. So, to clarify on the amount, so construction, we used $185,000 contingency. That one is also sitting around 60 grand on that contract. And then we are increasing the FGMP by $23,335 being used for owner contingency. So that's all in those separate buckets of contingency. But since the contractor contingency is getting to start using the owner contingency, because once AP's contract runs out, then we have a contract, and that's just a hassle. So it's easier to just leave some money on the table for warranty as it arises. So
You answered my question before I even asked, so thank you.
we do have a healthy amount of owner contingency, which we're discussing with Michael and well about potential uses for those funds if we have access after the project.
Yeah, I'm glad a lot of this painting done. I think it will just help everything feel seamless
Yes.
for sure.
Any other questions? Comments or concerns? We can't take action on this if somebody
I will move
so
to
desires.
approve the Roosevelt Middle School in an amount of $23,335 to bring the total to $43,798.60.
Second.
We have a motion by President Sassano, a second by Director Proctor to approve Roosevelt Middle School Amendment number. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Diagon.
Yes. Samantha Proctor?
Yes.
Steve Susano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
Yes.
Michael Webb?
Do I need to sign anything? Okay. Perfect.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Move on to our next item, the District Accountability Committee membership appointment.
President Wales, board members, we've got a list in the current membership. A lot of carryover from last year. The new additions this year, community member Pat Murray from YMCA. Otherwise, there's a lot of continuity from last year to this year. We have back. So looking for you to membership.
When the chairperson gets filled on this, we don't have to reapprove or anything. Has anybody expressed interest in free food? Okay,
We've had a couple that are thinking about it.
nice.
I'm sure one of the people on this list will become the chair.
Okay, thank you.
I was gonna say question, so thank
Well, I'll make a motion to membership of the District Accountability Committee as president.
you. Second.
We have a motion by Director Jones, a second by Vice President Sassano to approve the District Accountability Committee membership up list. Any further discussion? Ms. Diagon.
Yes. Samantha Proctor?
Yes.
Steve Susano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
Yes.
We'll move on to item D, which is the Accountability Committee charges.
President Wales, board members, as we talked about, I think we tried to synthesize some of the feedback we got last week. We with charges in terms of monitoring the unified improvement plans and the improvement plans. But looking at those next two is important for sure this year in terms of that being a feedback input opportunity for the long-range planning process, but also process of portrait of a graduate, which we plan to talk more at length at our work session in 2 weeks to talk through the process is looking like. But giving that group that you just a chance to give feedback and along the way this goes, both of long-range planning and portrait of a graduate can be part of this couple of meetings for the district advisory committee so they can have on those processes. And then the last one, to continue to look at, we think through strategy on communication from on down, working with that group to help us have an understanding of what's expected, but also how do we meet the needs of some of those expectations. That group showed interest in that last year, and I think we got some feedback from them. I think this should probably help as we start to look at formal avenues and creating a different set of opportunities for communication district-wide. Those are the priorities that would like the board to approve in terms of how we'll spend our 3 meetings. I think we've got 3 meetings remainder of the year together. Those will be robust for us when we start thinking about formal activities around feedback.
Any other questions?
When we talk about communication, planning meeting, but I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, we talked a lot about student communication, not necessarily, or parent communication in the classroom, I guess. And not necessarily website and district-wide communication. Is that still one of the goals, is to look at the system, which is a really cool word, that across it, because like we talked about, I mean, we went 1 year to using Google Classroom to Class Dojo, and then to using a different, I don't even remember what it was, but there was a different every year. So finding one that works. And I realize teachers are going to use what they're comfortable with, and teachers think things work, but if we can find a way to make that classroom communication more consistent, I think that would be really helpful. Website is important too.
Yeah. All of those things should be linked though, in
Yeah.
terms of how we do. When we think about a strategy, they all can work together, much like your social media able to be done with one click rather than 6. So all of that fits into the systematized process. Before, we've heard a lot of feedback from the parent group that we meet with, but also individuals in the DAC around what you just talked about though, in terms of Class Dojo.
There's nothing wrong with any of those systems. It's just going back and forth.
Right.
But all of them is really painful.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, we can't take action on this evening.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2024-25 District Accountability Committee charges as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Director Johnson and a second by Director Proctor. The District Accountability Committee charge. Hearing none, Ms. Diagana, would you?
Amanda Proctor?
Yes.
Nate Sassano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll move on to item E, which is the School Unified Improvement Plan.
All right, President Wales, board members, Assistant Superintendent Kerr is going to take us through some of where we've landed in terms of our district. But also, I think we're both here to answer questions if there are questions about the board docs in regards to the district plan as well as school plan. So.
Good evening, President Wales, members of the board, and Superintendent Nielsen. We are really building on what we worked on last year. Our first goal is an ongoing goal focused on different instructional strategies with classrooms. For our second goal, instructional practice, to be able to increase those instructions that we're using. And through that, part of that, talked about with the impact team protocols, and we're doing with all 3 elementary schools, and looking at how we grow our collaborative processes and schools. Our third goal is to focus on student behavior and bullying, as Superintendent Nielsen talked about earlier, with the use of also making sure that our students feel like they belong and are connected to us. So all of these pieces working together and continuing. And you'll see that the Unified Improvement Plans through each align with the work that we have shared here through our Unified Improvement Plan.
Back. I do have one request, not a question. In previous years, we've had at this all the data that's behind the UIP, all the percentages and all that. I think it's that here tonight, but I'm curious if you could share that with us, just because I'd like to. I don't know if anybody else cares, but I would like to see those numbers. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Add to this presentation?
What's that?
Anything to this presentation?
Well, I think one of the things that's important just to think about is, so maybe I'll speak for me. I talk a lot about the elementary team work that's going on. And that is exciting to see what's going on. But also, out tonight, some of the work that Principal Sanders is, well, Principal Cabo, the middle school, working with UNC and co-teaching with process in her building. They already have what they call professional learning communities. So teams are coming together to talk about it, which is similar to what the entries are doing, with some opportunities for the future. But what they're focused on this year is the ability to co-teach strategy for our special ed students, to actually have our special ed students with the traditional learning setting, but with 2 teachers instead of us. And so for those 2 teachers to look to do that is an easy process. And so Aspen has expert from UNC coming over to help build continuity, build collaboratives that raise expectations for all students, which is what we're trying to do at the elementary. It's important to know if we're pushing on it at all 3 of our levels, and that's just an example of what fits in what Assistant Superintendent Kramer talked about around collaborative, that is in addition to some we highlight a lot around elementary, and on at the other levels also.
All right. I'll move the unified improvement goals for the schools in the district as presented.
We have a by Director Proctor, a second by Vice President Sassano. Discussion. Hearing us.
Thompson?
Yes.
Amanda Proctor?
Yes.
Nate Sano?
Yes.
Amy Musgrave?
We don't have any business on number 8. We scratched citizen comments on general topics.
I'm addressing the issues we're having with the new website. I don't know if that would be new business, but I mean, if in one of our schools, you get an error, 503, I mean, you know, I can't even navigate it to find Word document. I mean, my friends are calling me, we have a problem with our website. I can't be the only business.
We know we do, and that's,
Okay.
yeah, we know we have a problem, and I think we talked a little bit about it at our work session around some of the changes that are of us, and that it's likely not going to be the direction.
And that's kind of what the DAC is going to
Okay.
kind of address some of that.
But yeah, we hear you.
All right, let's adjourn at 7:05. Mr. Willard, thank you for your time tonight and your building. Appreciate that.
Yeah.